We're here today to raise awareness with politicians mostly that while the Children and Family Relationships Act was brought into law 4 years ago, it still hasn't been commenced. So what that means for families is that for same-sex parents, only one of the parents can be legally recognised still. So there's no mechanism in Ireland for parental recognition of same-sex parents. So really we've seen one delay after another, and we just basically are saying enough is enough. This needs government support, and it could be progressed in a matter of weeks. This could be a reality for same-sex parents and their children within a couple of weeks if the urgency and the government supported it. Yeah, I mean, I think that they don't see it as a priority. They may see it as a minority issue potentially, that it's only a small number of families affected. But actually it's, as you can see, it's real lives, it's real children, and I suppose the government do see themselves as a progressive government. You know, they do see themselves as progressing LGBT rights, and yet our families, a fundamental right is for our families to be recognised, and that still isn't the case. We've seen different things take priority in government, and we're saying this is the priority now, and just get this done.
I just want to say to commend the parents and the children and the allies who've come out in support of the cause today. We've been waiting 4 years for this legislation. The Minister has recently announced that she'll be bringing forward legislation. That legislation needs to come forward as soon as possible. And the problems that face same-sex parents, like consent for their child and travel and health, and all of those issues need to be addressed in this legislation. It's gone on for too long, and we need full rights for same-sex parents.
So this is Aria. She's 2 weeks old, and my wife and I have a 2-year-old as well. We did reciprocal IVF, where we used my wife's eggs and I carried both of the pregnancies. And this legislation that's proposed has been in the making for 4 years. It was passed 4 years ago and it still hasn't been commenced. So hopefully it will be commenced in the next few months, but even once it does come in, it's not going to cover a lot of families. So it's not broad enough and it's not good enough, to be honest. It's not going to cover couples who've gone abroad. We went abroad because reciprocal IVF wasn't available in Ireland, which is a whole other story. So we went abroad, and so families who go abroad, anyone who does an at-home insemination, and all gay fathers are totally excluded from this bill. So you can imagine in a small community, it's making it even more divisive. To say that this child is not entitled to have both of her parents recognised, and yet that child is, simply because of where they were conceived or how they were conceived. It's not good enough. Equality is not equality unless it's for everybody.
What brings us out here is the lack of legislation for LGBT families and their children and the legal rights. So I carried our twins, and my wife has been unrecognised in every step of the process, even though she's been with me from day one. And I'm finding that very frustrating, because my wife's family are from the UK, and to go travel or to get a passport for our children, I have to sign an affidavit that says I'm a single parent, which I'm not. We've been together for 10 years. We've been married for 5. It took us 5 years to have twin babies. So, it's been a hard struggle, and I can't understand. We voted for this back in 2015 to be equal and to be treated like our friends, our heterosexual couple friends, and we're not. Like, what I found the worst part was when I had to register the birth of the children, and I went in and I went up to the desk and they asked me if I was married, and I said yes. I waited, I took a seat, they called me back up to the counter, and when they realised I was married to a woman, they then encountered an awful lot of difficulties in registering the birth of the children, because it was like, oh, well, I need to speak to the supervisor. Do you have a letter from the fertility clinic you used? What donor did you use? I got asked 1,001 questions at a very public desk when nobody else who was registering the birth of their children was asked those questions. Well, like if I was married to a man and I went and I got an egg donor and a sperm donor and we went and we conceived a child that way, nobody would ask any questions. We could rock up on the day, register the birth of our children, and nobody would be any the wiser. Whereas we're expected to register on a donor list now to have all of that information. Like we've chosen for our donor to, when the kids turn 18, if they want to find him, they're more than welcome to. We have all of the information. We've actually more genetic information on our donor than you would with a one-night stand. Sorry, that's terrible. Which is, you do. And like, we've researched this, we put our heart and soul into it, we've put a mortgage payment into conceiving our children. And I just feel that, like, to sit here and say that my wife is any less of a mother than I am, because the law hasn't caught up to what families have been doing for years.